Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again, and this time we're going to talk about a sculpting technique and a way to retain continuity of material types for building various things. Dreams user RabidDevilBadger came to me with this idea and asked if I would help present it. We've been working on that together for the last week, and now here it is. The sculpture technique is one used by John Beach of Media Molecule to make wood-grained sculptures, and everything you see will be a variation on that theme, but we'll try to extend it to other material types. The sculpting technique involves smearing shapes into a mass. In this case, we're going to try to reproduce John Beach's wood grain. I have to confess I'm not the greatest at this technique. I've spent most of my time with it experimenting with material types. RabidDevilBadger is a lot better at this, as we will see later. So I'm in sculpt mode and I am going to smear a hollow elongated sphere. This is most effective if you hollow the sphere out before you change its shape, because that makes the resulting membrane thinner. And you will very simply smear out a mass. You want this to be a good enough size that you can carve various items from it. You want to smear fairly quickly to get variation and to produce tiny gaps, which will eventually result in texture. For wood grain in particular, you generally want to keep your edits pointed in the same direction, and I don't do it here, but you can vary your edit size a little. While in sculpture mode, we will switch to the crop tool with some blend, and we will crop this shape down to a building block. I'm just doing a cube here for demonstration purposes. If you watched my rocks, asteroids, planetoids, and moons sculpting video, this may look familiar. And you'll probably also realize that this technique can be used for a variety of materials types. Just to emphasize, it is imperative with this technique that you use blend with the crop, otherwise the color of your crop will completely wash out the surface color of the resulting shape. Part of the reason we are doing things this way is to retain detail. Okay, I now have my wood cube. If things are looking fuzzy, don't panic. Thermo is extremely low at the moment, and if you hit it with the sculpture detail tool a few times, thermo will still be low, so you have plenty of headroom for sharpening. Now I'm going through and trimming this up into a different shape. If you have a specific shape in mind, you can usually achieve that with your original crop if you plan better, but I didn't, so now I'm doing it this way. These are stamps, and again, very important that you use blend while doing this, otherwise you'll lose the color detail on the surface. We've transformed our wood cube into a wood square, and you can see we have some very nice grain detail on the surface of that. As indicated before, thermo is low, and you have headroom to increase detail, and the result is pretty pleasing at low cost. Now I'll trim this down closer to a board, and we will get to the meat of RabidDevilBadger's idea. We're going back to our smear lump, and I'm going to repeat this process a little more efficiently to make another board. There's nothing new here, so I'm going to zoom through so we can get to the next idea. So I'm making a wood beam, and I'll copy that and set the copy aside. Then we'll go back into the original. Once we're in the original, we can make a unique beam simply by placing the crop edit at a different spot in the lump. And what you have is a volume of various differing textures of the same type. RabidDevilBadger calls this a texture map. Traditionally, a texture map is a 2D image projected onto a polygon, and what we have here is an entire volume of textures, so this is a very interesting idea. If you're making a singular thing, this is inconsequential, but if you're making lots of the same type of things, this is a big time saver compared to making the textures over and over. Another benefit is that you can retain continuity of style across a range of objects. So let's say you want to make a piece of furniture all from the same type of wood. You can try to make the same wood type over and over and get it to match, or you can painstakingly detail every little surface, or you can do this and save a bunch of time with the same result. Just as an example, I'll make a wood puck real quick from the same volume, and it matches up pretty well with the planks we made. Another advantage of this is that if you happen to come up with a really good texture group, not only can you keep that for later use, but you can also publish it so others have access to it. I also want to show you the range across which this technique works, so let's try cloth to show it isn't only for hard surfaces. This volume was made with vertically smeared rounded cubes. Color was subtly tumbled between white and off-white. I'm going to make my crop with a flattened rounded cube about the shape of a mattress. One issue with crop is that when you turn blend up with it, it tends to really dig into the creases of the edits. This is good for revealing wood grain, but a little more sketchy when we're going for a flatter surface like a blanket. But you need to retain the surface color, so you don't want to go easy on the blend. Somewhere in there is a middle ground, and if it's still too bumpy, you can rectify that afterward. We're going for cloth here, but this is an interesting shape. You can probably see a lot of uses. If you rotate the crop edit, you'll notice that the effect of the blend changes depending on the edit's orientation to the grain of the smear. So maybe you can use this for a roof or a wall or a lemon meringue pie, who knows? The point being, this is pretty versatile with certain texture volumes. For certain styles, this right here is a great shape, but we're going for cloth, so we want to flatten this out. However, we need to blend to retain surface color, so we have something of a catch-22, but there is a solution, and this is a trick that's good to remember for just about any kind of sculpture. I have a negative edit set up so that it will affect the entire side of this shape. From this distance, we must have some blend on in order for it to do anything, but we want it to be subtle due to our color issue. If we move our edit closer, we'll make the surface worse, but what if we do the same edit again in the same place? That flattens out the bumps and doesn't worsen the creases, which is exactly what we wanted. So I'll flatten this out real quick and we'll move on. And when this is done in a couple of seconds, you will have a flat yet bumpy cloth napkin or bedspread or whatever. But the point is, if you need a bunch of cloth objects, you can keep going back to this volume over and over. RabidDevilBadger and I have pieced together a collection. Honestly, it's mostly RabidDevilBadger. It's called Texture Mapping with Lucid Stew, and that contains a bunch of examples you can check out and texture volumes you can use to make stuff. Let me walk you through it. There are a lot of cool examples of different types of wood, but that's not all there is. There's some stuff for making caves. This is two different texture volumes. I particularly like the stalactites and stalagmites. This fantasy underseascape is an interesting exercise in trying to make a scene from a single original sculpture. Here's the texture volume for that. You can see that's a kaleidoscoped or rotated curve tool shape, so there are lots of combinations and possibilities waiting to be discovered. Like the cloth, this isn't just for hard surfaces, you can make it to use plants as well. This technique works great with metallic materials and repeating pattern. Here's a hint, there are some interesting armor making techniques waiting to be discovered using these ideas. Here's a look at some shapes and textures you can achieve by moving your imp very quickly while smearing to produce larger gaps. You can do things like Swiss cheese where the texture is only visible inside. You can also use these textures for something other than their original purpose. I don't know what this is, but it is not cheese. Some really cool ideas about pattern and sculpts as well, and I think this one in particular showcases the advantages of textural continuity across shapes. You can see the texture block itself, it can be quite simple. And then here's one I made while I was messing with the idea. This is tumbled hollow cubes, and it gives you this interesting rotten futuristic vibe. You can take that, transform it into a bunch of unified architectural elements, and make yourself a city. So in this video we talked about a sculpting technique with a wide range of uses, as well as the texture volume concept of using a single sculpt to make many unified sculptures. I think the next video will likely wrap up the graphics thermo tutorial series, but that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you in the Dreamiverse.